Good afternoon. Today is Monday, October 7th. It's about 4 p.m. in the afternoon right now. Although I am actually doing this recording in Germany at a resort that I've been at for the last week or so. So it's actually the morning where you guys are. Um, I have to do things here today very, very low tech. I've actually been able to write up physically all my notes on a notepad while I was on a train yesterday for like 4 or 5 hours. And it turns out that the software I like to use to edit the video when I'm all done, and I'll have like little pictures here and there everywhere, only allows one user per computer, and that's at my home computer. So I'm going to be as low tech as I possibly can and entertain you at the same time. But we here today are talking about the fifth installment of Jim Butcher's Dresden Files. And I just finished Death Masks here, actually a couple weeks ago. It just took me a while to finally get around to doing this. But here I am to finally give it to you. And just to show you how low tech I am, I actually have to share the screen with the book instead of popping it into the Filmora, is the software I generally use these days. But there you go. There's the book. I'll have it sitting up there for as long as it can not fall down while I talk to you. So, and I'm sorry, I will be looking down at my notes as I'm talking as well. But here we go. Like I said, I'm into this series. I went out and I pretty much bought them all on eBay at a nice big lot level price. I was able to even go pick up some of the short story books and even the graphic novels because I did find a reading list that actually said, you know something, with the short stories, they kind of intersperse themselves between the novels themselves as well. So I'm trying to read everything in like a chronological order of when the story is supposed to take place. Because, yeah, if he's got some allies that later on say die, and all of a sudden I read a short story and there's the ally again, it's like, okay, now where should I throw this story in my own mind? But that's where the value of the internet comes into play. Someone else has already gone out there and done their real research and said, oh, read this story right between book 4 and book 5, or book 5 and book 6. And I'll tell you what, I've been taking that list, I've been using it as my own Bible, and I've been enjoying the ride. These books are so much fun. So you're going to probably see me do one of these for every single one of them. Stick around and enjoy the ride with me. But where does Death Masks give us, as far as his timeline and where we go next? It actually has a pretty interesting introductory paragraph, or chapter, should I say. So what you got here is Harry Dresden actually finds himself in a talk show. It's like here's your resident wizard of Chicago sitting in front of people like it's the Michael Bay show or even Oprah or something like that. And he's sharing a dais with like 3 or 4 other people. You would not expect to see him in this kind of predicament. But he's there, and this is the Larry Fowler Show. And his specific one is called Witchcraft and Wizardry, Phony or Fabulous. And that's where our friend Harry Dresden is. So he's actually sitting there on the stage with a new ally that we're just meeting for the first time, I believe, called Mortimer Lindquist. And he's kind of like a medium. He's a psychic counselor, and they're there to express the pros of actual magic to Larry Fowler and his audience. And it's funny that Harry Dresden's actually on a talk show because as you've seen so far in all the books and short stories, wizards and electronics don't really go well together. He doesn't carry a cell phone because it'll just zap right in his hand or something like that. So while he's sitting here on this show, you got to figure there's microphones nearby, there's floodlights, cameras are coming in and zooming in and what have you. Harry's actually sitting there incanting his own spell while he's sitting there in the studio. And what he's trying to do is like rein in his aura as much as he can to make sure he doesn't zap all the other stuff that's out there. So it's splitting his focus. Basically, he didn't think he's going to need much focus, but you're going to learn soon he definitely does. But he's trying to make sure that he doesn't, whack out the whole studio, and God forbid something goes wrong with the actual recordings or the actual like location, and he starts harming people. Because if he did that, then the warden that we've met in the prior books would probably come over saying, "Oh, look what you did," and Hassan chop and knock off his head, or haul his ass right over to the White Council saying, strike three, let's get rid of this guy. So he's concentrating, he's splitting his focus, you know. And the funny thing about it is, he's actually there to have a meeting with Mortimer. Okay, this isn't just one of those like, hey, I'm doing it for the money, although, as you usually see, this down on his luck private eye usually doesn't have much money. So he's getting paid like double his normal fee just to be on the show, which he needs, but he's actually there for a purpose. And the purpose is actually to meet Mortimer. Now, Mortimer's actually being very clever here because due to the events in the last book or two, with the whole vampire war and the Red Council coming out against the wizards and everyone else, Harry's a wanted man. And a lot of the time, what they do is, if they can't get to you, Harry, they go against his friends and his allies. So Mortimer doesn't want to look like one of those guys for the moment. So he's like, oh, I'll do the talk show with Harry, and we'll say what we have to say to each other while we're in the talk show. So it's kind of like a ruse to have the meeting that Harry needs without putting Mortimer, sorry, on the chopping block. Because he's scared. He's just scared of his life right at this point. But what is it that Harry wants of him? Well, you know, also going back a couple books, that Harry was kind of seeing the one woman, Susan, who was like one of those like magazine people. She wrote for the Arcane. She's always trying to get, shit out of Harry to put as in her articles out there. But they got together a little bit, and Harry had to go see the vampire clans, which started this whole damn mess that he's in. And what actually happened was, while Harry was a guest at the vampire party that was going on that he went to, he was safe under like the Accords and whatnot. Susan decided to go with him, and she wasn't safe. And she ended up getting kidnapped and started to be turned into a vampire as well. So you have the one love interest in Harry's life was ripped from him. And he tried everything he could to get her back, which prompted the fact that he broke the Accords, and now the Red Court of vampires is all like on a rampage. And they have every right to be because, hey, peace was broken by a wizard in the White Council. So that's where that ends up happening. But the thing was, she was trying not to turn, and even though she was taken to different chateaus around the world, she still kind of maintained that one link to the Arcane magazine. And she'd remotely throw in some articles here and there, and maybe get some money on the side that she could throw in a bank if she ever freaking needs it or whatever else. However, she stopped doing that. Articles ceased to come in. In fact, the publisher had reached out to Harry at one point saying, hey, do you know she's around? What's going on? I've heard nothing in detail. Now, Harry, knowing that she might be half vampire or fighting it or whatever else, and there's a war going on, thinks that his old girlfriend, should I say, might be dead. So he wanted Mortimer to do what he could to see if he can delve into the death world, speak with her, commune with her, divine her, whatever the case he has to do, give him some information. That's why he needs Mortimer, and that's why they're meeting. So, during a commercial break, they're actually able to have their little tete-a-tete, and Mortimer's like, dude, she ain't out there. And if I can't find her, rest assured she's not dead. So you got that, feather in your cap that you can go chase down. Maybe you can find her or something like that. But it was worth a shot for Harry to ask him. Now, interestingly enough, like most of these kind of talk shows go around there, what happens? There's two other seats that were on the dais, and those seats eventually get filled. And they get filled by two people, one of which is a Father Vincent coming from the Vatican, and he plays his small part. But the other one happens to be, what did they write down here? Dr. Paulo Ortega. Or Ortega, yeah. Renowned researcher and debunker of the supernatural. And by the way, he happens to be a Duke of the Red Court. And he's sitting like right next to Harry. So you got to figure right now, the temptations in Harry are certainly raised. And especially with Ortega. He just flat out at one point says, by the way, I'm here in Chicago right now to kill you, Harry. So it's like, geez, is something going to get on or what? How's this going to work out there? And he even, tells Harry flat out, listen, either I'm going to kill you or I'm here with so many compatriots and so many allies. And if they don't get you, they're going to go after the other people that you like in your world. This is happening, make peace with it. But he tells Harry he has an offer for him. He goes, I know I'm going to kill you. Don't worry about it. But I want to do a duel. And I want to do a duel according to the Accords. So we're going to do this legitimately, because I think that if I kill you, that should end this war. And the whole vampire kind, the vampire kind, and the White Court could come to a peace agreement saying, if just Ortega and Harry meet according to the rules, and it ends, whichever side loses, war is over. So now you got Harry sitting there just like, you see his decision tree come through his mind, right? And he's got that, what the hell am I going to do, kind of attitude going on there. Because as it turns out, Harry's not at all familiar with the Accords. He probably has it in a box somewhere in his basement, that he doesn't have it to memory. He's not that kind of a good wizard. So he's like, he's not even confident he could kill Ortega if he had given the chance and the tools. So, of course, he agrees to do it. He goes, if this will put an end to the war, I'm going to do it. Now, it kind of goes a little bit against one of Harry's axioms. And one of those axioms, I had to write this down, sorry, was you never walk into a fight, especially if it's the bad guys or the ones that are setting it up. But Harry doesn't take his own advice. We've kind of learned that by now. Bada boom, bada bing. So it concludes another one of those little gotchas. But at the same time, it turns out not only was Harry there to talk to Mortimer, and then Ortega comes there and he does the threat and the offer, but Father Vincent's there for a reason too. So you get the entire dais was actually there to talk to Harry. And he's going to talk to him. Did I write it down? Entire panel, I'm sorry. So, okay. He's got to talk to him. I got my train of thought now. He's got to talk to him. And they're like, all right, come with me, get in my Beatles, the one thing that actually runs around me, and we'll go back to my place or your place, whatever else. And as they do that, of course, boom, hitmen come out of the freaking woodwork, and they're all coming after him. You got narrow escapes, typical Harry segues as they go from like one part of the battle to another, and are we going to die or are we going to live, and yada yada. But finally gets Father Vincent away. He says, hey, let's talk for a while. And Father Vincent's like, oh yeah, I need you to do me a favor. Something was stolen from the Vatican, and it's come to Chicago, and it's here to be sold, and it's very important you get your hands on it. And as he goes into it or whatever, Harry figures out, he goes, wait a minute. Do you want me to find the Shroud of Turin for you? This is the cloth that Jesus was buried in, that has like imprints and blood from his body all over the thing too. And this is where Jim Butcher does a fantastic job. Is there are times that he sits there and he takes the religion aspects of certain things and it throws it into the magical world. He melds the two in such a fashion that is just fascinating to follow. Okay? And Harry references the religious icon to Father Vincent, saying, hey, this is about magic. Now, the father doesn't get put off. He's like, no, whatever else. He goes, listen, the most important thing to the Vatican is that the shroud has a historical significance, right? It actually gives us a physical link to the body of Jesus Christ. We need it. Can you find it? Can you bring it back? We'll obviously pay you whatever you want. Okay. And Harry's like, listen, I know you don't believe in this kind of stuff, but there's some rules to how these things happen. He says, you're talking about an artifact. It's very, very old. It's regarded as special in people's eyes, and people believe in it. Okay, those three things are enough to imbue it with power itself. So while you think it might just be a shroud that's important that it touched Jesus, it actually does have power due to like the laws of the universe. And when you get into this aspect of Jim Butcher's writings, I just light up a little bit. It's like this is fantastic stuff. So by the way, all that is like chapter one. They do a great job of setting the stage, giving you some stakes, telling you what else is going on. Harry's got his work cut out for him. And now he's still got 400 pages left of an adventure to go through. But let me fast forward a little bit, to get you some more highlights, And I'm going to try my damnedest to be as spoiler free as I possibly can be, because I'm not here just to give you, hey, this is what happens at the end kind of things. I do want you to go out and read it if you find this conversation interesting. So, the first is we encounter a new type of baddie that's out there. One who attacks Harry, and they even try to get into his soul gaze, and they get get a little exposition going on there, which, by the way, is a great tool that Jim Butcher has in his toolbox to give you information regarding the world building that Harry Dresden inhabits. Okay, and you got here these new monsters; they're actually human. Okay, they got attached to some kind of sigil, which might even be part of like one of the silver coins of Judas that are marked in such a way that makes them into these monsters that they are. Okay. Um, you also, we've met Michael Carpenter before. He's one of the Knights of the Cross, and he's got that sword that he carries around, imbued with one of the nails of Christ, called Amoricus. It's difficult to understand how to actually say the word. I'm going to say Amaricus and move on. But he's one of the three Knights of the Cross. Well, in this book, you get all three Knights of the Cross working together. It's become that much there's that much at stake to deal with. Besides Michael Carpenter, you get Shiro Yushima is one of them, and a Russian whose name is Sonya. And the funny thing about the Russian, too, besides being a very gruff attitude kind of a guy, is he is a Knight of the Cross, but he's also kind of agnostic. It's like the angel Gabriel gave him the sword in some fashion, or maybe it wasn't Gabriel specifically, but he was actually imbued with the sword and doesn't really believe in God. So you get that little aspect of these three. Third thing you get introduced to is something here called the Order of the Blackened Denarians. Okay, and they kind of work hand in hand in here. They've touched upon some entities before called the Fallen, which makes you believe that the fallen angels that can do what they have to do and maybe cause whatever it's going to cause Harry problems along the way. But the thing is, especially when we saw these new monsters being introduced in this book, that the Fallen can't just corrupt people. Can't just turn people into monsters. But what they can do is almost act like devils and demons, and they can tempt you. They can tempt you with whatever your lust of power or revenge or whatever it happens to be, and then maybe get imbued with the sigils on the coins, and then boom, as you lose your soul, you can then get warped into whatever these demons are, because there's not just one form, there are many forms. Now, another one of the B or C storylines in here, because we know that Harry gets a lot of his money by actually working as a consultant for special investigations with Karen Murphy. She falls on a case with what's essentially a plague-ridden corpse. This corpse has got like 9 plagues in it simultaneously, which you'd think any one of them would have taken, days, weeks, months, years to actually get a body in that level of either decay or infection or whatever you have it. but this body's got like 9 of them simultaneously. It's a complete anomaly. Again, a case to work upon while a duel is in the future, while everything else is going on, like finding the shroud. They even bring up a new entity to help out Harry that he can summon or divine. Ulsharavis. And Ulsharavis can be divined. He's one of the allies of the Loa, and he's like an oracle spirit. Basically a good information deity that you can utilize in such a fashion. Not sure if deity is the right word there, but one of these spiritual beings. But it can have dark sides, so you really got to be careful. Now this is great too because Jim Butcher does a great job of going to like spell ingredients, potion ingredients, things to actually like bring down to, let's say, our level what happens in this world and in the world building itself. And it's so funny, like even to get this Ulsharavis over there, he's got to like have his magic circle where he'll imbue it with power. He's got the copper one in his basement already, lined up. He has to give it whiskey. He's got to give it tobacco. So those are some basic things that you need in order to divine certain things. Which is funny at the same time as he's pulling these ingredients out of the cupboard. He's like, "Oh, this is the last shot of whiskey I had, and now I don't have any more tobacco left either." So he's like using up the few things he actually has worth of ingredients. Pops it in the circle, puts his power in there, and let me just say that Harry had selected a ridiculous and inappropriate for the spirit realm vessel for the body that this thing has to come and inhabit because it needs to have like a mouth or an arms and legs or whatever else. And it turns out they even have notes on his little spell book that says a freshly killed corpse is the best thing to use for these. Well, Harry doesn't really have many of those lying around, but he's got a funny one for this one. I'm going to leave it vague because I would like you, if you haven't read this, to pick it up and read it. Like I said, I love the series, but I want to spoil this one for you because it's freaking funny. So you've got all those things I told you about. You got the new monsters. You got the 3 Knights of the Cross. You've got Ulsharavis. You've got, the Order of the Blackened Denarians, the Plague-Filled Corpse. Take all these things that we know about, especially with the duel coming up and the fact that he's broke to begin with, and you got to put it in a little pot, all right? And Jim Butcher puts it on a simmer and lets this thing go for another like 200 plus pages, okay? And you deal with what we always deal with. Harry's got his scant leads and he's got to follow them as best that he can. Many foes are on the board, plus the ones that just kind of come out of the woodwork at him, whether it be like a tree or a troll or what have you. He's got his reliable allies to help him out, or that he has to get to do certain things for him. For instance, by the way, in the duel, he's got to actually ask Michael Carpenter if he can be his second for the duel. And if you ever want another background on how duels work, maybe go check out the Hamilton play. And they'll break down how to do duels back in that time frame with pistols. Take that framework and now put it into a magical duel setting. You're on the same page. And as this all happens, like I said, foes, allies, whatever else, he has no idea where to go, hoping that every thread that he pulls on brings him somewhere. Like I said, set that pot on simmer, and you're in adventure time now. So we follow our hero as he follows one thread, and then he wins. And simultaneously, he almost dies, and then he loses, again, simultaneously almost dying, and then he gets into a fight or 3, and it goes on and on. It's just classic Dresden Files for you. This story fits the bill that you've gotten to and just keeps upping the antics as it goes along. Oh, by the way, with the duel that was according to the Accords, the duel when you finally get to that is pretty freaking cool, And right before it, we segue to another character in the world that I'm sure will come up again. This is a little bit, to me, like when I was watching the second Matrix movie, where all of a sudden besides you already knew about like the Oracle from the first movie, but in the second movie there's like the Merovingian, and then there's the train conductor, or there's the Keymaster. And I'm not sure if I'm mixing up 2 and 3 at the same time, but you had these other characters who had like a name or a title to it. Well, Jim Butcher threw in one of his own. You actually get introduced to the archive, okay? And the archive itself, herself, you know, is she's an emissary for the duel. She actually was selected by the White Council to help out with the duel. But she's the living memory of mankind. The sum of all human knowledge passed down from generation to generation, from mother to daughter. Okay? And it's been going on for as long as life has been going on. Oh, and by the way, in this book, the archive in question is a 7-year-old girl. So even when Harry sees her, it's like, wait a minute, you have literally every bit of knowledge, anything that's ever been written down or spoken from one person to another, and you're 7. So you go into those kind of antics as well. So again, in an effort to be as spoiler-free as I possibly can, I'm just going to have to say there you have it. These are all the ingredients that do this story, And by the way, everyone that you've seen in other books, you got Karen Murphy, you got the police case that he has to work on. You go down that you go down that alley as well. And by the way, they still have that tension between the two of them, Harry and Karen, where, they lost their friendship for a while after the first book due to the fact that Harry was not giving her information. Now he's starting to actually share more with her, so she's learning more and more about the world that Harry actually inhabits alongside of Chicago, which puts her in the crosshairs. So even don't forget when Ortega said, I've got allies, I've got assassins with me to do whatever else. If they can't get to Harry, my bad, they'll go after Karen in order to get to Harry. So she's becoming a confidant more and more. Again, thank you, Jim Butcher, for bringing this into the world. I'm just going to kind of leave that out there for you. I'm not trying to make this sound incomplete or unfinished, but, there's enough here for you that should nudge you to maybe, try it yourself and give it a read. Pick it up. If a friend has it, a lot of people read these books. I'm sure you know someone who might have these, especially if you're a book person like I am. Borrow it from the library, Amazon it for yourself. Do what you got to do. But that's what I got for you today. Just coming in a little bit shy of about a half hour. I've been talking the whole time. My throat's actually getting pretty dry here. One thing I will say, though, is we're currently in the Alps in Austria. And whenever you travel, one of the things they always talk about is, can you drink the water there? There are places just don't drink the water, bottle water it the whole time. But what they say is, this water comes from these mountains, from the snow. It is supposed to be the cleanest drinking water in the world. And I'm drinking it right here from the tap, right in my hotel room. So, like I said, here's the book. Here's my little synopsis for you. I hope you enjoy it. That's all I have for today. I'll probably be doing another one very shortly. I have one of the other splatter westerns taken care of. So you'll see that soon enough. In the meantime, you enjoy everything, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.